Yeah, weird sort of end to the day yesterday. Weird kind of end to the market. I managed to. Actually, I'll explain while we're on air. I've still got some of these trades on, which actually I'm going to just get my lines gone so they're not so busy on my chart. But yeah, I've managed to move up there we go. I've managed to move my my hedge up a little bit because I was hedged here, and as this came down, I managed to move the stops as I said I would do yesterday to break even, and it just took the hedge out, and as it came back up again, then I've got another hedge on up here, and I tell you what it was down to. It was just that I did you listen to Jerome Powell's speech?
No, I didn't, mate. No.
Oh, it was just. You know, in actual fact, after he'd sort of spoken, I thought actually he didn't say anything too bad. But there was one point I thought he was kind of intimating that there'd be no monetary stimulus whatsoever, because he'd be, but back to the old kind of rhetoric of listening to the data and watching the data closely, and that would be what would dictate decisions. And I thought, well, that's not going to get us through, and what I was looking for is, in actual fact, it was around about the daily pivot area yesterday. So I thought that's not going to get us through. And because, I was a bit concerned we weren't going to get through, I put a trade on right in this area, actually, just where we are now. So that kind of, it went a little bit further, but it did ultimately fail. And I think we're just caught in this kind of pretty choppy region now. So out of China this morning, we've had, some fairly bad numbers. Not bad numbers actually, but they're, showing that the pace of growth is slowing. Germany missed recession, slightly missed a technical recession, which is great, obviously, which would have helped things out, I think, normally. And Japan, I think, also had some fairly bad numbers as well. And in the background, it's kind of got this backdrop of this Donald Trump impeachment going on.
Yeah, as did Australia. Not that it would affect the FTSE, but Australia had some shockers this morning as well.
Right. Yes, they did. Yes. Yeah. Which we'll come to in a moment, because there was an Aussie trade we were talking about at the start of the week. But
and yeah, that kicked into gear.
Yep. Yeah, that's kicked nicely into gear. But we'll so we'll talk about that. But yeah, just it doesn't kind of fill me with much confidence to buy, to take off the hedge. In fact, that's more what it is. I still think that the market is ultimately a long, but I just don't see what's going to get us there. I don't see I'm not sure how we're going to get to the long.
Yes, I know. I do know. I'm not sure how we're going to get anywhere at the moment. I think it's a market that's just marking time in midair.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case.
Why?
Yeah, and we've obviously got this symmetrical triangle going on, and I think the market might well bash its head between these two areas. But the breakout is going to be probably pretty explosive. What's going to take us through, I don't know. But that would be potentially the measured move on the breakout, which would actually start to look like really the trade that I'm after. All told anyway, sort of in this area is about right, because that area there is around about the 7,500 level, and the 7,500 level I'll have to bring onto a clean chart, brings us where is it? I'll tell you where it is. 7,504. There was a 7,500 level. Oh, it might even be a little pattern off that or something. But there's a 7,500 level. That's 74.19. So maybe it's not there. Actually, I'm not sure what's going to get us to that point. But I'll tell you what it is. It's these highs. It's these closing highs up here. So I think the 7,500 level would be a fair target. That looks like a really good horizontal level across there. So I think that would be a fair target. So if the market breaks to the upside out of the pattern, then we may well get up there. But as I say, I think just for right now, we've got to let things establish themselves and just leave things on hold, because I just don't have a catalyst, and I don't really like what I'm hearing. So I'm not that keen on the hedge. I don't really want the protection in place, and I'll show everybody where it is for what I'm doing. But so it's just here, right there. These are all long, but I've got this hedge down here just as a security kind of in case we don't pick up and we do actually start to collapse from here. Because actually, the other thing is, when we look at this 4-hour chart, then this could be an area that we're starting to see this lower high. And the market could, technically speaking, it could actually start to fade down from this point anyway. So
not too many hints there, though, is there? Really, it's
no.
the bars, high test, low test, high test.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. And actually, yesterday, I think I was hoping that we'd get some help from Jerome Powell, just to give us this, which would look more like a hammer if it closed at the high. But right at the end of the day, it started to retrace a little bit, and that just didn't really help me out. So that was the reason that I thought, you know what, it's going to be wise to put on a hedge here, just as a bit of insurance. And so that's what's going on. So we'll see what goes on. They're nice and tight. That's what I like about the fact that the hedge is now on, because before my hedge was down here, as you know, but as price came out, it took that one out, which is great. And I've managed to move it up a little bit. So every time I shift it up a little bit, if I can get beyond these levels, then it's in even better shape, and eventually there's no need for a hedge at all. So so yeah, it's the waiting game, mate. Oh yeah, so quickly, Euro Aussie.
Euro Aussie, yep, it took off on the Aussie bad news this morning. Pardon me.
Yeah,
have you got the chart?
Yep. I do. Where is it? Euro Aussie. Here we go. Yeah, Euro Aussie, really, like we're talking about this one as the trade of the week, as a potential currency of the week, and yeah, there it went. I think the only, in retrospect, obviously, the retrospect pattern looks like this one here. When it came through that pattern yesterday, then there was probably an opportunity just before the news and data came out. But always a little bit dangerous, isn't it, mate? I mean, when you got news and data released, I suppose a wise point would have been to put a buy stop here, maybe a sell stop down below it just in case, but certainly a buy stop above that in fact, buy stop above with a stop below would have been okay, wouldn't it? And that's now gone.
Yeah, look, it's a challenge. Kiwi was the same yesterday with the interest rate non-cut, and I had an order set on that to go long, and I had it set on the EA, and the EA won't allow slippage of more than whatever you set it to be, right? So you set it to be, okay, you'll allow 5 pips of slippage, but no more. If you get more than 5 pips of slippage, it won't enter you into the market. So that's what happened on the Kiwi yesterday. I didn't get into that trade because of that reason. So it is a challenge around news.
Yeah.
When it's a number, it's not so bad. But, when it's anything but a number, it becomes very, very difficult because, it can go both ways in a heartbeat, and that makes it tough.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that looks to be on its way, mate.
It does look pretty good. I'll tell you what. Can I hand you the screen just for a little? I hear another drama going.
Sure thing. Okay, I'll take over and see what I can find on the currency charts.
All right, buddy. Be back in a bit.
Roger. Okay, we will start with this one, shall we? This is Euro Yen, and the trade that we took earlier in the week, was it Monday or Tuesday? I can't remember. Monday, maybe? Yeah, Monday. And we were looking for this to go to the top of the range, and once it hit the weekly pivot and turned around, we said, whoops, here we go. We're going the opposite direction. That's exactly how this has panned out. I don't like getting in late to moves like this, but this is looking okay to me. If this were in particular to touch the daily pivot, I'd be most impressed with this. This is the 4-hour chart, and we've got nearly 2 hours to go before that candle closes the 4 hours. But I am watching it quite closely. I'd really like it to get up and test that daily pivot so that it takes it out of the equation. We've almost had that already today, but almost is like a tease, isn't it? It's kind of, sometimes it's close enough, sometimes it's not. This is a repeat, really. At the end of the day, we had that yesterday where we came off what I had as a support level, didn't quite hit the daily pivot, and away it went. Is this a repeat of that? Maybe. But one thing we didn't get yesterday after the near test of daily pivot was a big rally, or did we? We did get a rally bar, I suppose. This is not dissimilar to that in many ways, except it's much later in the day. Well, it's actually probably not. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th candle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th candle. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's coincidental with the opening bar of London session, of course. And oftentimes you'll find that the London session opening bar will go in the opposite direction of the Asia session. That seems to be happening again. This time with a fair bit of conviction, one would think. Does that deter me from going short? Well, it actually does at the moment, because 2 reasons. A, we haven't had that daily pivot test, and B, that bar is very compelling for the bulls, one would have thought. All of that said, if the 4-hour bar does give me what I'm looking for, which is the daily pivot test, then I will look to place an order underneath that bar. Of course, the theory behind that is if the bulls do take charge, they'll take us back to here, and they won't allow us to go short. And if that's the case, then we shouldn't be taken into a bad trade. If it's not the case, then we've got a very good break and retest of not only the monthly pivot, but then it would be the top of the range and the daily pivot. So that's kind of where I'm at on Euro Yen. Now, those of you who've been in Euro Dollar with me since last, when was that? Today, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Friday. Last Thursday, I think we placed the order on Wednesday. I have moved my stops to 110.22, I think was the level. Yep. Reasoning. Look, this may have run out of steam. That's kind of what I'm getting a handle on here. And if that's the case, and we do get above this resistance area, which is very strong. We've got a resistance trend line or trade line. We've got the backside of a support trend line or trade line. And we've got DR1 there as well. So I think if that all of that resistance goes, then something else is happening, and we'll probably finish up back at the monthly pivot at some stage. So I wanted to lock in that extra profit, and that's exactly what I've done. So that's our third position on Euro Dollar now, locking in another 38 pips, I think it was, of profit. Yep. If you're not in this, then we've got no reason to think there's anything happening, except if this resistance does break, then get a retest, then I'd be switching polarity very quickly and looking to trade it long. That would be my stance on the euro today. But again, I see targets well below us, and hanging in there. If we can get another, where are we? 50 to 100 pips out of this, I'd be happy. So anywhere down in this area, that would please me. Whether we've got the energy from the sellers to continue at the moment is quite beyond me. It looks as though we are clear of this. Oh, sorry, it doesn't look as though we're clear of this level, and that's my my real concern. I suppose we're bouncing off that former resistance and support area, which is very, very strong, right on the 110 mark, really. And yeah, no surprise we hit a 110 figure. It's a fairly substantial one, and we are getting a bounce at this point. So nothing to do here except, as I've done, tighten my stops, and if we can break the support, happy days. As I say, if we break the resistance, then we're probably headed up towards the monthly pivot. And therefore, I have locked in that extra bit of profit. Now, the Aussie, we spoke about Euro Aussie rather. And of course, this looks exactly the reverse, as you would expect. Yeah, look, I've been a bear on the Aussie, but I really wanted to get an opportunity to trade it from up in this area. That has not been the case now, of course, because of the news. That's sad because I can't get in now. It's just too late. If I couldn't have found a way in, because what I was looking for here today was a false break, really, of the monthly pivot, and I guess in many respects the bottom of that channel as well. The weight of the market and the bad news was just too much, of course, to bear, and here we are. What next? You've got to think the unemployment rate is the number one figure here, and the unemployment rate has once again gone up. Aussie unemployment's been hovering between 5.3 and 5.2 and 5.4. I think it got down to 5 at one stage, but it's been hovering in that area for quite some time now. And every time it goes up, of course, the Aussie goes down, because that's never going to be a good sign for the currency. And that's where we're at the moment. So I think that's going to be the weight of expectation for the next little bit, certainly till the end of the week, or something more fundamental happens and we get a reason for this to rally. I don't see it at the moment, so I can only be bearish. I certainly can't trade it though. We're beyond DS2, and that's a no-go zone for me. So I guess I'm just sitting on the sideline here waiting for retracements. Euro pound, we've been monitoring this one, and as I said yesterday and probably the day before, if I did see a false break here, I'd get interested, but my interest was lost very, very quickly when I saw this bar, and then the ensuing 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many bars. This is on a 4-hour chart, so you can see exactly what the market's not doing, and that's very much a case in point on a lot of the crosses that I do trade. That's frustrating, but it is what it is. I have no qualms about waiting for it to unfold, and that's precisely what I'm doing here. I guess to enter a trade here on Euro pound now, I want to hear something. I want to get the market telling me, or the fundamental situation unfolding a little bit more. I'm bearish the euro. I'm kind of bullish the pound. That makes me think that south is the way to go. But then if we get back into this range, I've probably got to trade the range. So, as I said yesterday, it's very, very much a case of I find it difficult to get interested right now in the market, because I don't see anything that actually tweaks my interest until something happens, and Euro pound is top of that list. Cable is probably the reason that Euro pound is top of the list, because nobody knows what this is going to do next, and we've seen this happen time in, time out in the last God knows how many months, years even, because of primarily the Brexit situation, of course. Now, from a technical point of view, this was in a very nice position to go long, based on bounce off the bottom of this range. I call it a range. It's actually a descending triangle. A descending channel. We bounced off the bottom and we hit a resistance level, put in a higher low. That's perfect for me to trade long. Wrong time of day, of course. And that was a good thing, because I probably would still be in that trade right now if I'd taken that entry. And I would be fuming, because when the market goes this slowly, it's a very, very slow and painful experience. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. And I just absolutely can't stand it. Drives me nuts if I'm in a trade like this. And I'm very, very pleased that I'm not. Has my opinion changed? No. I still think this can go to the top, but when, and where's your stop going to be? That's the biggest question that I need to ask myself. And again, my interest is virtually zero. Pound yen is a little bit better because we are at a support level. Let me go to the 4-hour chart and make that a little clearer. We are at a support level, and if I were to see price get maybe back at this level, weekly pivot, then give me a higher low, I'd start to get interested. So I guess what I'm looking for here on a 4-hour basis would be price to break and retest this area. You can see how strong the area is, daily pivot and weekly pivot. sandwiched very closely together and a resistance trend line thrown in there as well. So if it were to break that resistance and then come back and retest it, that would be a long for me for sure. But at this point in time, again, it's just speculation what's going to happen next and a waiting game. Well, it's not really speculation. I don't care what happens as long as it shows me that it can take a shape or some sort of market structure. And the market structure that we have right now is clearly that rectangle. Do I look for it on a smaller time frame? Yes, I do. Absolutely, I do. And that's why this line here is important to me. Again, I need probably to see a break and retest on that line. And the reason that I have got that is because of all this resistance here. A little bit of a shame, of course, that we can't trade into it, and we definitely can't. It's too strong a resistance level to do that. And that's, if I do get a higher low here, that's going to be very, very difficult to trade into. So I really need to see this break and be retested if that's going to be the case. That will give me the higher low and a potential entry. There's also, if you take note right now, a potential trade with this bar. But for the reasons I've just mentioned, it's very, very poor reward to risk. You can take, your 6 pips there, no problem. And I don't know. How long have we got before this bar closes? 12 minutes. I'll come back to it. No, sorry, this is an hourly chart. Let me have a look at the 30-minute chart. What's that? It's very similar. Not the same, but very similar. I may be prepared to take this. I'll see what the bar looks like in about 12 minutes from now. That's the problem. The problem is this resistance area. And I don't see us getting through that with one go. I see us stalling here. I can get us safe in the market, I believe. And that, I guess, is the key to the strategy in many, many ways. But do we go on from there? Where do we put our stops then? Our stops are going to be about here somewhere. They might be safe. All right, I'll come back to this in 10 minutes and make a call on it, see how that candle actually looks. My issue, apart from that, is that I'm a bull on the yen as well. That makes it tough. So you're trading against your bias. So I did that on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, but I had a clear target in mind. Aussie yen. We said this yesterday, of course, that we were looking at bounces off strategic levels. That continues to do that. There was a strong level here where the support and resistance areas crossed. Daily pivot yesterday, daily pivot today, although I would not call that a daily pivot test. The daily pivot's really come down to price rather than the reverse. And now we've got our little scenario here at the monthly pivot. And of course, this level, which is around about 73, well, let's call it where we are, 73.90, that'll do. There's a level just above that, I think, which is probably the level. Makes it tough to think short here right now. Or it's not tough to think short, but it's tough to trade short. What I'd like to see is price bounce off here, come back to the resistance trend line, and then look for a short. I think that's probably the way I'd like to go here. But no trade there at the moment. If you would like to trade that retracement, you would need, that's a very nice little scenario there with the tweezer bottom, I've got to say. That's a 30-minute chart, and I don't have a trade line that helps me here. But I do have a nice little pattern where we've got a bull bar and a decisive selling bar like that. But I really do need something to help me here. If there was any form of price action down here, I'd be looking at something that's very, very similar to a false break. But I don't have that. At least I don't think I do. Let me go a bit wider. No, I've got to go to hell and back to actually find those support levels. So yeah, I can't draw a line through there. That's like 2 months of price action on a 30-minute chart. That means absolutely nothing to me. So yeah, I can see it. I can absolutely see it. And if I was probably looking at a free trade or a discretionary trade, then I might even put an entry long above here, because I do like the tweezer bottom, but from a strategy point of view, I'd need to see probably a higher low to go with that. That might then give me a trade line through here that I can trade safely with. That's Aussie yen. Aussie Kiwi has shot through, of course, given the bad Aussie news and the good Kiwi news yesterday. Untradeable where it is, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. Pound Kiwi is far more interesting, and this tends to give me some, I wouldn't say hope, encouragement, I think is the word that I'm looking for, that the pound can actually rally, because we are at a strong support level. The Kiwi had fantastic news yesterday, and yet we haven't been able to drive through that support level. The issue, once again, is I've got daily pivot descending on us, and we're in this little rut here, like a little gutter that we can't crawl out of, and that's an issue. But the structure here may allow me to trade this. I'd need to come down, however. Let me have a look at the 30-minute chart. Yeah, that's what makes it difficult. Okay, there may be a little structure that we can put in place here that'll allow us to trade a little bit later. It might be there. It might be there. Messy, huh? This is why I'm so disinterested in the market at the moment, guys. You've got to do a lot of work. You shouldn't have to work this hard. If it isn't clear, oftentimes you need to just wait and stay out. That's kind of where I'm at. Okay, it's a little bit more interesting. When we have a look at this structure that we've now got, we've come off a resistance. Well, we've created a resistance here really with that line, so forget that. We haven't tested the daily pivot yet. We are at the top of the range here as far as I can see. That range is only young, but it is there, and already we do have a higher low in place. Wow. So you've already triggered into that if you were thinking about taking that trade. There's only about 1-to-1 to get you to the bottom here. So your reward's not great on it and your risk is high. The reason your risk is high is because the daily pivot hasn't been tested and we're absolutely in the middle of this range and we don't know where we're headed next. So although it's interesting, it's not compelling. So I'm going to stand aside. Aussie CAD is interesting, and yesterday and the day before and the day before that and the day before that, I was saying we're trapped in this little area above the range, which is the rectangle, of course, and below the trend line. That remained the case until this news on the Aussie came out this morning. Interestingly, once again, we've gone straight to a support level, which is a strong support level, I've got to say, not just because it's the monthly pivot, but because it was so rebellious of price last month until we finally broke through. Can't remember what the reason for that was, the Aussie CAD breakthrough, but that was kind of in the middle of Bali, and I don't know, I was paying too much attention to Aussie CAD for whatever reason. Sorry, man.
Sorry, that's better. I can't help you with that one either. I can't remember about the Aussie CAD. I don't know if anybody took that one, did they?
Yeah, can't remember, mate. I really can't. Too long ago. But it's interesting where it is now. The fact that it's taken so long to get back into this range is problematic for me. I do see this as potential second false break, but Why didn't it come straight back under here? These are the things going through my mind. What was the market thinking here? What was going on? What was the price of oil doing? Why was Aussie up there?
Yeah.
Price of oil's going sideways and has been for a week or more, a couple of weeks now. So that's really not influencing the CAD, one wouldn't have thought. But the Aussie was just going sideways until we got that bad news. How bad is that reaction is the question. And really what I'm seeing on 57 odd pips on a few of these pairs with the Aussie and the Kiwi news that's been, I guess, front and center for this week so far, they've only driven price to a support level or a resistance level and not beyond. That kind of gets me thinking, okay, do we now erase those emotive reactions and go back to where we were, or do we now wait for a confirmation, and that on this chart will come as a lower high back inside the range? That's the daily chart I'm looking at. So we'll be waiting a long time for that, one would think.
Well, I've got a quick question for you. Have you covered the pound euro already?
Yes, I have.
There might well be a trade on the FTSE later in the day, so I will explain that to you later on. The
reason I've been looking for long is because we've broken the range to the low side, and I was looking for it to come back into the range. I'm now far less confident that that's going to be the case.
Well, I was going to ask about the German numbers. You know, the Germans they've missed that technical recession, and I'm seeing the euro is increasing a bit more against the Aussie. You know, after those numbers, and I suspect that the euro is probably going to be a pretty good trade, and we'll find another one for next week. You know, we'll find another trade of the week. That one's worked out really well. I think I'm pretty sure gold was the trade the week before. That we were both talking about gold, and that one's worked out. So actually, we got a bit of a 2 for 2 going on. And you know, I'm not a currency trader, but I certainly quite keen on seeing if I can pick some of these out, because as you asked me before, will my style change? It may well do if I get 10 in a row. You know, all of a sudden, then it's going to start looking.
No, that's not enough.
Maybe 20 in a row, it'd be an attractive proposition. But my question really is, with that German number, is that enough, do you think, to kind of lift the euro into the range? Because you're not looking for a lot there, are you?
Well, no, you're not. But and the answer has to be no, because I have no evidence of that right now.
Right.
If there was going to be a shift in momentum or in sentiment, then surely out of this range that would have taken place. And really, we haven't moved.
Yeah.
So all I can see is market still waiting for something. What that is, I've got no idea. But it's something bigger than German sentiment, I would have thought.
Well, we've got the ECB monetary policy out, haven't we?
The MPC minutes,
yeah. So I wonder whether that might help things out a little as well. It won't help.
Maybe.
You know, if Lagarde says, if she says there's going to be accommodation, then it won't help, obviously. But it could do if she takes a slightly more positive stance on the euro, you know, and you know, maybe talking about other things. I don't know.
But again, as I said earlier in the week, is she actually involved in that? Because if it's only the minutes of the last meeting, then she wasn't at the last meeting, or she wasn't chair at the last meeting. So
yeah, sure.
I really don't know, mate. I think we're waiting. We're waiting for her to actually do something. I've got no doubt about that. Yeah. And I think that's the only reason why it's a very slow burn on the euro going south against the dollar at the moment.
Yes.
It's a very, very, very slow burn. You know, generally, if they get a sniff of a weak euro, they're into it and they sell it off pretty quickly.
Yes.
That hasn't happened. It really hasn't happened.
Yeah.
We had a couple of reasonable days, but yeah, really, I'm just seeing a slow wick of a candle going very, very slowly. That's why I've tightened my stops on that euro dollar trade.
Yeah,
I think it's running out of puff.
And yes, which happens.
And maybe there's going to be a decent retracement on that, which technically takes us back to the monthly pivot, which is sandwiched with the weekly pivot. So there's a great target there for the for the bulls. I just don't. I don't. Well, I get it. I get that we're in a range and
Yeah.
we're waiting for something, but I don't see any way out of this at the moment.
No, interesting. And when you're done, mate, there's a quick trade on the FTSE that I can bring to everybody. And it's
Take it now, mate. I'm just
okay.
about done.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think it's one of those days, guys. You know, it's a little bit, I guess, similar-ish to
Oh, I've
yesterday.
got.
Where
Hang on. I'll just go back one quickly. I was looking at. What was I looking at? Not Aussie yen. What was I looking at? I said I was going to look at something in half an hour. It wouldn't have been that. No. You take it, mate. I'll come back to whatever
okay,
it was.
yeah,
I'll find
yeah.
it.
Okay, so the FTSE, you know, there's still a potential long. You know, but granted, it's going to be quite difficult to figure this out. Now, why can't I share? Oh, here we go. Granted, it's going to be quite difficult. Now, you know, the current level we are on this weekly pivot, sorry, on the daily pivot. Now, I will be moving my stops on this edge to break even and seeing if I can get taken out and then and see if we can go. But there's no doubt about it. It's going to be tough to figure out exactly when that's going to happen. But later in the day, and it might be before, I quite like the way this trend line and I quite like the way the trend line and the daily pivot might start to react. And if this pops down, there's around about 14 pips. Well, right now it's more like 17 pips to come to the downside. But a moving down here and a pop back up again and a closing above the daily pivot, that wouldn't be a bad area to try the long because then you will have an area to put your stop. The first port of call is that the stops will be down here. So really, if stops are going to be down here somewhere, I don't know where, might be slightly below, but somewhere down there, what we need is for price to test the level where our stops are going to be placed. So what you're gonna need to wait for is a breakdown of the daily pivot, and then a pop back up again. Now, I wouldn't be too concerned at this stage if it closes just below. You know, I wouldn't be too worried about that because any bar which bounces from this lower line, there is going to be an opportunity to put a buy with a stop just below. So what at that point, what you need to do is see if we can get up to this level on a kind of it looks like it'd be a better than a 1-to-1. And then move stops to break even as soon as it touches this line because there's no guarantee it's going to go through. But if it does, then it actually could be quite a lucrative trade. But the first point of call is you're going to need it to test here. That's really important that it tests down at that line. So a test and a bounce, and then you can start looking for the long and seeing if you can get through to that particular point and go. So that would be the trade on the FTSE. I wouldn't be interested in just a bouncing off this daily pivot. I'd want to see this tested down here. And the reason I wouldn't be interested in the daily pivot is there's just not enough room. Obviously, if it starts to break through, that does change things because then you're just waiting for a retest of the line and then you're going to go. So you've kind of got two options. You either wait for a break or you wait for a touch of this lower line, and whatever the bar does, you know, which now this is an hourly. I wouldn't be too adverse to go down to the 15. I wouldn't go to the 5, but maybe the 15. Whatever the bar does in the way of a bounce, I just place a buy order just above the bar. It's got to be close to the daily pivot. I wouldn't want it any further than 2 pips below. But if it's a buy stop above with a stop below, and then there might be a trade to the upside. It is going to be tricky because this market isn't particularly bullish, and it's not going to be, and it's not particularly confident. But there are opportunity. There could still be an opportunity, and if you keep your stops tight, then if it does take off, and you know we are looking at the measured move of the range of the pattern, so there is plenty of room to the upside if it is to achieve it. Now that will mean. That will mean that. Oops. Yeah, it's possible we get up to around about the 7,500 level. So there could be 150 pips out, but this is going to get squeezed fairly soon. Obviously, the other option is that you put a buy order just above the weekly pivot and a sell order just below, maybe this low here, because if it does break out, there's plenty of room either that side or there's plenty of room that side, which would lead us right down to the monthly pivot and potentially beyond. So there's a couple of different ways to play it, and that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because obviously that just basically says I'm not sure of direction, and when the market breaks out, then it's probably going to be in that direction. My stance is that we've still got some legs in this market to the upside. I'm not 100% confident on it, I have to say, but that's my particular angle. I still think that there's a chance that we get further upside. And the chance and the possibility that we probably test this level here is maybe later in the day. Maybe we're looking at sort of like the US session, because I want the daily pivot and this trend line to be fairly close together when I take the trade. But that's all I got, mate. I think, the market is showing just how choppy it is. You look at this on a 5-minute chart. This is the day's range. We opened here, and we're pretty much exactly back at that price again, with fluctuations here, there, and everywhere, going up and down. So we're not really kind of like defining anything right now. But I still like the long, but I've got to say I don't have a really strong reason to like the long, except for the fact that it hasn't broken down on some pretty average numbers and some pretty average reporting. So that's the reason. It's very loose, but I still think there's a chance that we could break to the upside.
Yeah, look, same. I've got ideas, but I don't have any methodology to actually trade them at the moment. And the methodology that I do have is very much a case of you're not ready. You're just not ready to trade because the market's telling you you're not ready to trade. So the two, or the one that I was really looking at, was pound yen and long. And the reason I was looking at it was, obviously we're at the structure's bottom and we're looking for a bounce, but we approached a trade line, and I've got shots over the bow here. We've had an approach, pullback, another approach, pullback. This one's going, pardon me, very, very close to the bottom of this support area as well. So that now is less tantalizing than it was. And to be fair, it was never tantalizing. It was just and what I was looking at was placing an order above this bar, stop loss below it, but maybe below here. That's probably the better way to put it, or better place to put it. That would give me a 35 pip risk. And as I said at the time, 35 pips, by the time my spreads are taken into consideration, I've got 9 pips of profit there where I could take profit. Then I'm straight into another resistance level. Then I'm straight into another resistance level. Why should pound go through those resistance levels against the yen, which is strengthening? Doesn't make sense to me. It's just not something that makes sense to me. I can see the potential for going to this level, but thereafter I don't see any strong potential. If it breaks it, then different story. But why should it break it is my question. What is going to force it to break that level?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Aussie yen's exactly the same scenario. We've had a up and back. Euro yen's exactly the same scenario. We've had an up and back. But to my mind, the yen is in a position where I believe it's going to strengthen, and the euro is on a downward trend, and we're at the top of a range here. I see the potential, but I see the resistance, and I see no reason at all to change polarity here, in my humble opinion. So,
yeah,
guys, that's where I'm at. I'm just waiting for something to be far clearer than it is now, and something that goes along with my bias and market sentiment. We've spoken about this at length now, since we all got a good dose of it in Bali. There has to be a reason.
Yes.
And I just don't see them.
Yes, I totally agree, mate. I think it's going to be a tricky day for intraday traders. I mean, you know, certainly if you're just trading ranges, then there could be some opportunities. But I think there's going to be a tricky day today. I think actually getting the level and getting the sentiment right is not going to be easy, which is why you need extremes in this kind of environment, in my opinion. You know, if you can get extreme levels, then it makes it a lot easier to make the money. Because, you know, if the market's indecisive, why would it break through an extreme? You know, so if it gets down to the extreme, then there's every chance that it could bounce at that particular point. So that is why I would just sit and wait, and you know, sit and wait, or just don't trade today. It's entirely up to you. But I think there could be an opportunity at some point, and the only reason I'm saying that is because it is rare for a market to drift for long periods without something of an explosive move at some point. But Jeff and I just can't see what it's going to be. I mean, it might end up being the Donald Trump factor, couldn't it, mate? It might end up being that Donald Trump comes out and says something, and then boom, we're off again. But impeachment is quite an interesting backdrop, as I said earlier, because yesterday we had the House of Representatives, you know, looking like they probably will impeach him, but it's not going to get through the Senate by.
No. In his words yesterday, it's a distraction. It's baloney. It's a lot of rubbish.
And you know, and all they're trying to do, it's really interesting, is that, you know, the reports that I've kind of heard and read is that the Democrats are effectively trying to muddy his name before the presidential race next year. But to be fair, that's a whole year away, and people would have forgotten about this by then. You know, Donald Trump is brilliant at distraction methods, and he will distract the market, you know, easily over the next year. So they won't be thinking about the impeachment, you know, by this time next year. So I think their timing is off. I mean, they're well out.
Mate, I would like to, if I was a gambling man, I'd put $10 on Donald Trump to win the election right now.
Yeah, I would do the same, mate. And I'll tell you what, the time to get that is if he gets impeached in the House of Representatives, because the odds might just lengthen a little bit, if that's the case. So maybe we'll watch out for that, mate.
Yeah, maybe. Have we got a Bitcoin trade this week? Is there
gosh, Bitcoin. Let's have a look. Bitcoin gave us a bit of trouble last week, and it is continued to drift now to the downside. Let's have a quick look at Bitcoin before we go. Obviously, if anybody wants us to look at anything else at any point, then just holler, because
it's a bit quiet in the room the last couple of days. What's going on, guys?
I think the guys are probably looking at our trades and quite happy to just to kind of trade along with us, which is great. You know,
or our non-trades, as it is.
Our non-trades.
You're very active, but
I'm a little bit more active, but there are still you know, some pretty quiet days going on. But I think which is fine. You know, that this show is whatever you want it to be, but it is really about learning, and it's going to be much better for you guys to try and pick your own trades and maybe get mine and Jeff's opinion on it, because we might be able to give you a slightly more holistic view on it, and then you'll start to learn how we would analyze. So I would encourage everybody to start looking at you know, their own trades and currencies and bringing them forward, and to a degree, which can't be done all the time, because there's times we're taking trades that are outside the show. And hopefully we'll make you money, but you won't necessarily come away with all the knowledge you need. So you can ply us for as much information as you want on this show.
Yeah, interesting comment. Market not too good to me. Is that because you're over trading in a market that's not working, or is that because just taking trades that are turning around and going the opposite direction because of news or something like that, or you're not sure?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. The market's not too good. Do you mean it doesn't look good, or is it's just not been treating you well? It's been a tough market to trade. Maybe that's what you mean. It's been a tough market to trade, which it has. I thought I'd agree with that.
We agree 100%. Yeah.
So
the good part is, if you're not trading and have recognized that, then that's cool. That's really
yes, it is actually. It's another way to learn, isn't it? Well, Bitcoin, certainly with our particular strategy on Bitcoin, it hasn't worked out. Ours is the gap and go, and with the stop at the gap, and that's now come down and taken that trade out. Haven't seen a gap since, mate, but now that's closed up. Maybe we start to see some gaps again in Bitcoin. It does seem to be a bit of a gappy market. So yeah, I guess it's sitting it out with Bitcoin right now. I don't think there's anything to do.
I'm trying to see something in there that may jump off the chart at me, but I'm really not.
Yeah, I mean, look at this one. This is when we talk about the gap and go, we're talking about, oh, that one was a shame. That one would have lost. That one would have lost, but that one wins, and it wins again. You know, so you kind of when you get it, that's what's that? 5,000. That's 5,300.
I don't know what it is.
73 pips, but you see, the gap should only be around about 500 pips. So you're kind of always looking at around about a 10 to 1 when it works. But looking at this, it hasn't really worked out. Hasn't really worked out too often. There was a little bit of profit there. This one's closed up again. Yeah, it looks like you need the 10 to 1. But it was looking good for a little while, mate. But it looks like it's started to reverse on us a bit.
Well, maybe we get triggered and stops to entry instantly.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
If it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, then no harm. No
yeah,
foul.
that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. I tell you what's quite interesting though, is I wonder whether there could be a case to be made for when you trade the gap. So you buy as soon as it gaps. Maybe there's also a sell order put in place that would mitigate the closing of the gap as well. Because when it does seem to break this low, it seems to close its gap. Didn't break the low here, didn't close the gap. Broke the low here and it closed the gap. So maybe the other trade is to actually look for the gap close.
Maybe, but I don't see too much follow through from that.
No, I think they're small trades, aren't they? If you're going to trade that way, it's going to be kind of small. Here's another one. You know, you're in actual fact, I think the trade is that you place an order on the low and to take profit at the gap.
Gap traders.
Yeah. This one's a gap and go. Because
it's the first strategy I learned in trading was the gap trade.
Yeah, do you know what? It's one of the first I learned as well, actually. The gap and go,
and I just lost every time.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I think it's a tricky play, isn't it? But I suppose it's got to either gap and go or gap and close. It's rare that it comes back and gets below the gap and then turns around again. I mean, it's that actually looks pretty good for a potential strategy.
There you go. Well, another one to work on next week. And I haven't traded the breakout strategy this week, really because there's been no breakouts of any consequence. So that's still in the pipeline, guys. We'll continue to develop that. But maybe next week when the gaps, when the ranges have actually broken, we'll look to do that. Yeah,
sounds good, mate. Sounds good. Okay, well, let's call it a week. We are looking at a soft opinion of a FTSE long. We are obviously enjoying the fact that we've picked a trade of the week, which is going pretty well. And just waiting on the market to give us a bit more clarity, which hopefully will come in next week.
Yep, I'm on board with that, and a couple more shows left for me. There's a strategy-led coaching at 1:45 my time, which will be 8:45, I think, in Singapore, Hong Kong. Those of you who are registered for that, and the original show is on about 8 o'clock, I think. 8 o'clock, Singapore, Hong Kong. I'll be in that one as well, but I'm not sure what I'll be. Maybe there is something that's going to happen before then. We'll see.
Yeah,
mate. Have a great weekend, and everyone have a great weekend who won't be in those shows. We'll catch up with you next week.
You too, buddy, and everybody else too. Yeah, we'll see you on Monday. Same trade time, same trade channel.
See you guys. Have a good one.